Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Rich. You've turned into another episode of Wristwatch Rescue, where yours truly attempts to rescue vintage watches from the past. Today on my bench, I've got this HMT Janata. Comes from me all the way from India. An acquaintance of mine by the name of Dr. Patel received this from his father in India. Got quite a story about the family and how they obtained it. Evidently, back in the 1960s, when they were making these watches in India, they were the pride of India. And people stood in line for hours, and they were only allowed to buy one watch at a time. You were considered very patriotic if you bought one of these watches back in the 60s, because it was the pride and joy of the people of India. So now we can get the back off and see what we're looking at. Wow, this thing is really clean. He obviously had it serviced sometime in the past. To service the watch, I need to take it completely apart and then put it through a cleaning process and then put it back together. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to delve a little bit into the history of the HMT watch company. Now, after the Indian independence back in the late 40s from Britain, they wanted to become very self-sufficient as a country in their manufacturing processes. So what they did is, in the early 1960s, they formed a company called HMT, which stood for Hindus Machine Tools. Now, they had nobody building watches in India, so they went to Japan. They purchased the tooling and the technology from Japan, and this watch is very similar, based on the Citizen 0201 movement. Now, HMT actually made all of the parts in-house, right down to the hairspring. Not even the Swiss companies that tote themselves as making it all in-house would make their hairsprings. So it was quite an achievement for HMT to do that. Now, I'm having trouble getting this dial off. I've got the screws loose, but I'm trying to pry it with the screwdriver, and it's still not coming off. Something is going on underneath this dial that I don't know about. So I'm going to keep working on it here. I don't want to bend that dial. That wouldn't be good. Okay, all right. One more try. There we go. We got it under the... So what I'm seeing here is one of the feet of the dial is broken off. And apparently, whoever broke the foot off the dial tried to fix it by putting glue on a watch. So we got quite a sticky situation here. Take a look at this. I don't know what kind of glue this is. It looks like rubber cement. Not something you would normally do to a watch. Very unusual. So we're going to have to clean this off and get the dial back in there. So first I'm going to let down the power in the mainspring. And that's always a good practice because, if you take a bridge off, like this pilot fork bridge, that power is going to come flying out of there, and it could break some stuff. So very gently, I'm going to get this bridge off. Now, HMT was not known for high-end movements. This watch, called the Janata, which actually translates into public. In other words, it was built for the general public. Over the 50-plus years that HMT was in business, they built over 150 million watches. But unfortunately, they never really changed and started building quartz watches too late. And like a lot of other Swiss and American watch companies, they got into it too late and they couldn't catch up to the companies like Seiko. And before they could catch up, Titan, the other big watch manufacturer in India, who started in the 1970s, was selling all the quartz watches, and the mechanical watches just weren't selling. So by 2010, they had gone out of business. And I think the last watch was actually sold in 2016. So it's a sad ending to a glorious company that really brought some self-pride to the Indian people. Now today, there's quite an aftermarket for these watches. Now, they're very inexpensive, though. I mean, you could pick up one of these for anywhere from $35 to $60 on eBay. But I'm impressed at how well this watch is made. It's got 17 jewels. It's well engineered, well designed. Now I'm taking the keyless works apart, and it looks like glue even got down into this little cover plate. Yeah, that's all got to be cleaned up. I'm surprised that glue didn't stop the watch completely. It didn't make it as far over as the minute wheel. That's a good sign. Now we'll get the intermediate wheel out of there. Now this setting lever is kind of unique. There's a spring held down by this screw, and then it's attached to the bottom of the setting lever. If I can get it out of there. Yeah. Come on, Rich, you can do it. You see how that spring slides into that peg? It's kind of ingenious, very well designed. Get the stem out. And get the yoke. Now the yoke is what's actually pushes that sliding pinion back and forth when you pull the watch out and push it back in. You wind it or you take it to the setting mode. And then last but not least, we have the ratchet clutch, as I call it. So, on the other side, we're going to get the ratchet wheel off. The next hand we're going to take out is the seconds wheel. It has a pinion. It goes all the way down through the center wheel down below. And the seconds hand actually attaches to the end of that post. And that third wheel looks in excellent shape. And then the crown wheel, it's got a reverse screw on it. And it's amazing that the ratchet wheel actually did too. So 2 reversed threaded screws on this watch. Now, if you want to help me out, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below and the thumbs up, and leave me a comment and let me know how I'm doing. Because like I said, I'm just an amateur watchmaker. I'm just having fun with this, and hopefully somebody who's watching like yourselves might enjoy it enough to let me know about it. Now I'll put a link in the description down below to my playlist of my other videos. Like I said, this is actually will be the 7th video that I've put out. And also, if you'd like to learn a lot more about watch making, you could go and take the classes by Mark Levitt. He's a British fellow. I'll put a link to his website down below. But that's how I got started. It was with his online classes. They're very well put together. They're very intuitive, and you learn at your own rate, so I highly recommend him. Now, I've got this watch almost completely apart. Just have the barrel to take out and the center wheel. Now, the center wheel, a lot of people don't understand. It's actually called the second wheel or the center wheel. On the cannon pinion, when you see me take the cannon pinion off on the other side of the watch, it's actually attached to the center wheel. So that's what turns, and the cannon pinion actually turns the hour hand. Now, I take the barrel apart and take the mainspring out for a reason. That's to check and see if it's dirty, because a lot of, if the barrel is full of yucky old oil, it'll slow the watch down. So there's a lot of things that can slow down the aptitude. When you look at the time grapher, it's called the aptitude. And you want to have that as high as you can get it. And usually a dirty mainspring or a broken mainspring can really mess it up. I'm using acetone to remove that glue substance that was on the dial side of the main plate. It's coming off pretty good. Nice and clean, but now I'm still going to put it through the cleaning process. So I'm going to put all these parts into the cleaning baskets. I'm kind of speeding it up here. And once everything's inside the baskets, I'm going to take it and put it in the cleaning machine. Now, the cleaning machine is a 3-stage, actually a 4-stage process. Wash, rinse once, rinse twice, and then put it in a dryer, which is that open hole there on the right. I leave each one in about 10 minutes. It agitates it back and forth. But now I take the balance and the palette fork and put it in this substance known as One Dip. And it's a cleansing material. And what it does is it gets the dirt off, but it's not harsh. It doesn't throw it around in a basket like it does with the cleaning machine. After the balance wheel and the palette fork have been in the One Dip for about a minute or two, I pull it out, blow it off, let it dry up. Now, it's time to start putting it back together. First thing I'm going to do is grease the mainspring. Now, what I'm doing here is using Mobius 8200. I'm putting a little bit on a piece of paper so I can squeeze both sides of the mainspring and then just kind of slide it through there. It's a real easy way to get a nice easy flow of lubricant on both sides of the mainspring. And you just take it all the way down to the center, and it keeps a lot of the grease off of your fingers too. You can do this with your fingers. Now I'm going to wind the mainspring back up, and this nifty little mainspring winder. Now this one I love because it's got multiple holes, and if I want to do a left-handed mainspring or a right-handed mainspring, I can do it on this tool. I don't have to have all these big giant set of barrels with cranks on them. Once I have it all wound up, I just put it over the top of the mainspring barrel and push down on the top. And then we just fit the arbor in there, put a little 8200 on top, put the barrel lid on, and then it'll take it over to this little barrel lid tool that actually is kind of neat. You put it under there and you simply press down on it. It does a really, really good job. And there you can see the barrel is all complete and ready to go. Now, first thing I've got to do is put the center wheel in. And then the main spring barrel, which kind of sits over the top of it. Now, as it turns, it's the first place that the energy goes. So there's a separate little bridge that holds in that center wheel. A lot of watches do that. And then I come in with the barrel bridge. There's only 2 screws on this one. It's very simple design, but it's very efficient. Just put my screws in there, tighten them up, check it, drop the 4th wheel down in there, get it in its pivot, put the escape wheel next to it. Now that gear on the escape wheel actually engages with the 4th wheel, and that's what makes it turn. Now this is my seconds wheel, which on the other side connects the seconds hand. Now I'll drop the train of wheels bridge on top of those pivots and put a couple screws in them. Now this guy went together really, really well. A lot of these watches will fight you forever. Now there's a little washer on the crown wheel before you put it on, and this is the crown wheel screw. Now it's reversed threaded, and so as well the ratchet is too. That's so that it doesn't come loose when you wind the watch. Now this is the click spring. I'm just gently putting it in there. Don't want to let it fly away. Then set the click down on top, and then tighten down the click screw. And then just set my ratchet wheel up there, get it in the square hole, and then put the ratchet screw in there. And here again, this is a reverse thread. As you can see, I'm going left and going backwards on that one. Now, giving it a little turn, oh, the escape wheel is just spinning like crazy. So it looks good. Now, before I move on, I'm going to put a little bit of the 9010 lubricant in these jewels that are on top of the bridge. Then I'll do the same thing to the other side. Now, when a watch has the right amount of lubricant in the jewels, It really helps the aperture and helps the watch run really, really smoothly. Now, I don't put any lubricant in the pivots of the pallet fork. Just not a good practice. Now, I will oil the pallet fork's jewel stone surface because that reduces friction with the escapement wheel and makes everything run smoother. But I'll do that a little bit later. Now, give it a wind. Give it a little test. Yeah, it's jumping back and forth. That's what you want to see. So now we're ready for the moment of truth. See if this thing runs. Slide that gently under that center wheel. Get a little bit of alignment here. Easy, easy. There we go. Nope, not in there yet. Still not in the pivot. Oops. There we go. Almost there we go. All right. Moment of truth. Running nicely, it looks like. Get the screw in there. Get it tightened down. The next thing I want to do is get those jewels that are on top of the pivots of the balance wheel oiled. So there's this tiny little spring, and it's called a shock spring. And what that does is when you're wearing your watch, if you bump it or drop it, that shock spring keeps that pivot that you can see jumping around in that hole from breaking off. Now, before they invented that, back in the 50s, you'd get a lot of broken pivots because you didn't have a shock on it. Now, I cleaned that jewel, lubricated it. It's going to drop it back in there, swing my little brass spring over, gently put it back in its groove, and that guy is going to run for a long time. Now, the one on the dial face is a little bit different. It doesn't have that spring that swings up. It has to be moved. It's kind of like a cap jewel. We just kind of push it around. I'm using my one of my oilers that broke as a stick. Now, with it exposed, I can pop that out of there with the jewel pick. And then if you can see it, I'll pull it out here. There's the spring that holds the actual jewel is inside this little spring. It looks, it's a citizen design. So we got it cleaned up. We're going to put it back in. Put a little drop of 9010 on it. And then we're going to put that cap jewel back on top. Slide it around. Yep, almost there. There we go. Got to deal with this dial. Now, you can solder another foot on these dials, but I don't have the equipment to do that. So what I'm using are these little dots. It's basically a little sticky dot. And what I'm going to do is it's two-sided stickiness. Now I'm going to set it gently where a place where it won't interfere with any of the mechanical movement parts. There you go. Just nice and easy. And then I'm going to peel that little yellow piece off. And then when I put the dial back down, it should stick and last for years. Just got to get it out of the holder and squeeze it a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's working nice. And then I'll just tighten the screw on that one remaining foot, which will do most of the work and hold it in place. Need to get the hands back on, and we're almost done. First, I'm starting with the hour hand. Now, when you slide it on, it's actually going to connect to the hour wheel underneath the dial there that goes around the canted pinion. I'm going to run it around because you can see that HMT logo on the top is raised up. I want to make sure it clears that. And then I'm going to take the minute hand, set it exactly at 12, and line both hands up so when they're moving around they'll be fine. That's good. We're clearing everything. Here again, don't want your hands to bump into each other. Then I'm going to send the second hand on there. Just nice and easy. Pushing in. Oh, yeah, there he goes. Off and running. We're in luck. Give it a little push. See if it clears. Yep, it cleared. It's time to recase it. First, I'm going to blow out the lint and the dirt that may have accumulated in that case. I did run the case through the ultrasonic. It wasn't that dirty to start with, but it's a good practice to keep it ultrasonically cleaned. Now, just flip over my little pad. Line the dial, get it in the hole. Get my crown stem in there. Nice and gently. Push it in. There we go. Snaps right in. This is a little retaining ring. Now it keeps the movement centered in the case, because a lot of times they use the different cases with the same movements. So they would make different size retaining rings. So you could use all different kinds. Now this guy I'm only going to tighten up with my 8-ball there. And it looks like it's running nicely. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch. I've got a new leather strap that I'm going to put on this watch before I give it back to Dr. Patel. Real easy. Slip them in there, grab my little tool. Those little spring bars is what they're called. Keeps the tension between the two lugs, and that's what keeps a watch band from coming apart. Beautiful, beautiful. Still running nicely. Let's put it up on the time grapher and see how it's going to do. I'm impressed. 11 seconds, 220 on the aperture. Beat error, 0.9. Can't argue with that. Nice smooth line. What you want to see is how the parallel lines are close together and nice and smooth. There it was before. It was at 245. It was slow by that amount. Now here it is on the pad here. Ticking away and looking good. Didn't really have to do much. The crystal was in good shape. The case was in good shape. This watch is ready to serve the next generation of Dr. Patel's family. Now HMT had an historical past, amazing company, made a lot of watches, served India at a time when they were newly independent, and brought watches to the masses in India. As always, I enjoyed having you along, and I'll see you on the next video.